Sounds good. Okay, we'll take the roll call, I guess.
McTaggart.
Present.
All.
Here.
Bill.
Present.
Curtis.
Okay, present.
Johnson. Here.
All right. I guess obviously everyone's aware, we're holding this special session of the Finance Committee to discuss the budget and kind of where we're at in that process. And I think I know Kyle and I, and Sherry gave some input as well, but Kyle and I were here a couple days with Anita and had discussions, and I think she's passed around kind of some of those.
Kind of where we're at.
Kind of where we're at. So it looks like we're at present, assuming these things can all go through, and maybe we'll get into those in a little bit more here in a second, but we're $75,000 short, roughly. So we've closed the gap by $300,000, hopefully. I think there's a couple other outstanding items that could close it completely if we're able to get those to go through. And we also have, I think she emailed it to everyone, but you have a copy of it, the capital list from the sheriff. He was supposed to come, I think, to help walk us through that, but maybe he'll join us here in a little bit. But in either event, we can talk about that, but those would be items that are not, for the most part, included in the budget either. So I think we got some opportunities or ways to close that $75,000, but we might also, depending on what we want to do with capital, have some big exposure on things that undoubtedly are going to need to be done in the next several years, whether that's in fiscal year 18 or down the road, I guess, needs to be determined. So maybe we could talk about the capital stuff first, and
Okay.
or should we wait for him, or?
I don't know. I can try and start. I did talk to Sheriff after I got the letter, because what we were trying to get to is to build a capital plan, like how much do we need every year from the farm fund to fund this stuff, etc. So I did, in talking to him, I said, so I guess I don't have an idea from this letter what year these need to be done or what the priorities are. You're saying, I said, are they listed in order of importance? And then he kind of hedged on the last three and said they really don't need to be done, and we don't even know, like the courthouse roof, oh, that could last another 10 years, so maybe we don't even need to plan that. The fire alarm system, I don't really believe we need it. That was what Sheriff told me, and I said, well, then do I not put them in? No, don't put them in. Replacement windows for the admin center, I said, do we just look for grants for that? You know, so, and he says, yeah, you can leave that out. I don't know that that's that big of a deal or how much that would save. Okay, so essentially I was left with the first two items, and then like the heat pumps in the admin building, which aren't on his list, but I just kind of figured we knew we needed them. Then the second page is kind of like what the capital would look like rolling forward. I put in just those two items, three items for him. The parking lot, I guess 2 items for the courthouse. The parking lot, he said, could be done in 2 spots, and the first part next year and the north part 2 to 3 years. His estimate, just rough estimate, was the south lot would be about 100 and the north about 150. So you can see what I did. I put in the north for next year and then the south for next year at 100 and the north at 150. And then next year, $25,000 for heat pumps, and then reseal the parking lot here was one of the things. And then moving forward, I thought we had said that we reseal the parking lot like every 3 years, so I put in an extra $25,000 in 2021 to reseal the parking lots. But that's all I have in there, are those things. And if we take $50,000 out of the farm fund, which right now is suspect, because of the rent coming in at $109,000. You know, we've been using 100 for the general fund, which is part of our problem. I have 100 as a transfer to the general fund next year, 50 for the capital. Well, we have 250 in there. We'll have about 150 at the end of this year, I think, in the farm fund, about 150. Well, 3 years of 100,000 transferred to general and 50 to capital means that thing is gone.
Right.
So I'm concerned about this working, and even using the 50 grand on capital means we're 229,000 short in 2020, the year he says he thinks we should replace the air conditioning unit. And I wish he was here to talk about it, because that was a longer conversation. And he said the year that we should do it is the year R22 completely goes away, because then even refilling it will be very, very costly.
Right.
So he had looked at converting, you can see that, converting it to the new coolant, that's $160,000, but a whole new unit, it's 22 years old. Would you really put $160,000 into a whole new unit, and a new one is $325,000?
160 in an old one.
Right. Yeah.
It depends on how long it lasts.
Right. And right now, he had Train come, and Train told him, like, the controller unit could go out. It's obsolete, so we don't have parts for it. He's shopping, like, I don't know what used places for parts. To replace that is $20,000. So, I mean, if you do the R22 and the controller, you're at $180 to sink in to a 22-year-old unit.
Is that as old as the building is, or what? Just
No, that building was built in 1964,
Okay.
so,
So this would be what, half?
Ask them to-
It was replaced once then?
apparently, probably.
Or it didn't have it.
Yeah, so it added.
Maybe in those days, they didn't have it.
I was wondering how it started, I don't know.
1964 wasn't real popular. Wasn't a necessity of life.
So, I mean, at this point, just to,
Well,
those
go
two
back to
capital
that.
items, if you look at the capital plan, it doesn't work, and we're short in 2020, $229,000. So then, that would say we can't put the 100 in the general fund, and I'm not short 74,000, I'm short 174,000. That's why we kind of needed to start with the capital fund to figure out
Because it's going to affect everything else.
it's going to affect everything else.
Well, and I guess you've all heard me complain about this, or maybe not complain, but my worry's been that these are huge items that
We gotta,
when we were talking, Kyle and I were talking, it's like we keep kicking the can down the road, and
Yeah.
eventually you run out of road.
Mhm.
And
we should budget for something.
and I don't know what the right numbers are, because obviously there's a lot of, everything Anita just said, it's not necessarily clear cut, and some of the, hell, the air conditioner could be fine for another 10 years, the roof could be fine for another 20 years, who knows, but inevitably it's going to be a problem at some point,
And we need to prepare for it.
and we need to prepare.
Yeah, we need to-
That's my
Yeah,
concern.
but it's hard to have money laying there without somebody wanting to use it for something else.
Absolutely.
So, how do you
And
look
it's
at
the
that?
same thing even with the cars. Here, you know, we had, Kyle, Anita, and I had a conversation with the sheriff on a different day before this sheet was out, but how those roll over and stuff gets a little convoluted and confusing, because, okay, they have 8 patrol cars, 4 of them are being used
By two
basically
guys.
constantly,
Right.
all day long, and 4 of them are not being used constantly all day long. So how fast all those roll over, and what, even at what mileage and what status and stuff, a lot of those things, it's not very clear, and we don't know how many miles are on the cars. I think we need to try to get
I've tried to
some
get
of that stuff so we can kind of get it narrowed down and get a better feel for it, to say, okay, do we really need 2 cars a year, or can we get away with 1, or do we need 3, or, I guess, obviously I'm in favor of spending as little as money as possible, but we also don't want to get 2 years down the road and go, oh crap, now we got 5 we got to buy.
Right, exactly. And I tried also, the last page on that is the squads, rolling over the
Yeah.
squads. But it's so hard, like Mike said. I mean, I don't have mileage yet, so until I get mileage on these cars, it's hard for me to tell what, other than he said he wanted to replace next year the two that are, it says 2015, he got them in January of 16, but what came up in our conversation is that they're 2013 cars. They were unused.
So you got a better deal.
So we got because they were 2 years old actually when we bought them in January of 2016. So I'm guessing those are the two. I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't think the mileage was that big on, like 120,
Well, we don't know.
135 or
That's-
something like that, because he did mention it during
Yeah.
his
Yes,
budget
he did.
presentation. And when he threw out the mileage, I'm thinking, well, usually we run stuff close to 200,000, so I thought we had another year in them, but
Well, and that's, I guess, kind of the unknowns, but it would be good to get better clarity on all that stuff, because Anita took a good stab at it here, but it's a wild-ass guess.
It is.
because
It is a wild
traditionally that
guess.
type of car gets a lot of fast miles, and cars will take fast
Right.
miles.
And Anita even was one of her concerns, but I think the right one is, was wondering, okay, how much are we spending on maintenance for some of these cars? So when they get over 150, are we spending a lot more, or, I mean, all those things got to be taken into consideration, but
The mileage on the odometer is important, but how much do they project each one to go forward?
well, and that too, so.
Right. I mean, if we had the mileage now and we know how old
long
it
they
is
are.
and when it was purchased,
Maybe we can guess how
I can
much
kind of
they're
back
gonna use,
into it, but I don't feel like I have
Yeah.
enough information to be able to lay this out. The one thing
How
I
many
did
cars did we give him last year?
last year was,
I thought it was 3.
in 2016 it was 3. We bought him one in November of last year. He had 2 budgeted, and then he asked in his last year budget again for 5. And so I said, how about if we take money from contingent last year in November, if we have money left, we spend it on a car, and we get you one car in FY16.
He balanced
You buy
over-
one out of he had enough in his police vehicle fund, and then we buy 3 out of the general fund. And that's what we did, and we got him his 5. So we got 5. 3 are non-squads. 2 are for investigators, and 1 was his. 2 squads. So then now, he's saying for next year, well, he's saying 4 squads. Well, we told him right from the start that's not going to happen. I think he said 3 squads and then the radios and the computers is how he wanted the $100,000 split that day. Do you remember that?
I believe so.
So I said, what if we, again, haven't used our contingent so far this year, haven't needed it for anything, we're in the end of August, what if we take 1 car this year out of contingent in November, and then 2 next year, that's 50. That's how I got him from $100,000 next year to 50. So that's 3 cars, and it's not the computers, and it's not the radios that he wants. And those just have to wait.
You might find enough money again in his own fund for a car. He should have his figures on how that
Well,
runs.
the safety tax will be coming in by October. I think
That ain't gonna be much.
I think that's what everybody's preparing for over there.
we don't know.
The concern with the safety tax is we still don't have any word on arbitration. That's part of this whole issue is, I mean, joint dispatch, what I budgeted is that we win arbitration. That's a very rare occurrence. And best case scenario, if we lose, is that it's $100,000 next year. Worst case scenario is like 300.
Wow.
that's why I feel like,
And it's one figure or the other one, is it? It's not
There's a
halfway
lot of
between.
unknowns, like the arbitration stuff, but I do feel like
Yeah, that's
this
all
shouldn't be as unknown
Yeah.
and as much guessing as what we're having to put in.
Yeah, you're right.
It's my personal feeling. And I know there's, undoubtedly, we never know what happens. A car could, but we should have a better idea than Anita trying to guess how much the miles are. Or, I mean, how
Thank you.
often they need to be changed.
And cars that one person drives get a lot more mileage than a car that
Well,
many
absolutely.
people drive.
That's the-
That's where you look for 200,000 out of a car that one person's driving primarily versus a car that,
Well, and there's even that we...
3 or 4 different people
okay,
drive.
we want-
There goes one police car right now, it's running all right.
Okay, we want...
that's
It
Watsika.
wasn't doing like this.
That's the city of Watsika, that's not
Was it?
ours.
Oh, I'm sorry.
they got a bad budget, yeah.
They got a better car.
It wasn't smoking. But
So what we suggested we do today?
I really wish Sheriff was here.
yeah, I think we gotta
Maybe
get...
drove her in the
We
city
need to
car.
get clarity from him on some of these issues, because I know there's unknown stuff like, okay, when's the roof gonna go bad? I get it. But
Yeah.
like, the cars, which are an ongoing thing and constant, shouldn't be so unknown. It would be my opinion, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think we gotta get clarity on that, and... yeah.
I mean, right, so that's that. I mean, the parts I feel good about are, well, now I don't even feel good about the farm fund transfer, 100 grand. I'm assuming 100 grand out of the farm fund. Based on what happens here, is that the right or the wrong answer? It might be the wrong answer. Maybe we take 100 to capital improvement and leave 50. In which case my issue isn't 74 or 75,000, it's 125,000.
Well, the farm fund, we had the auction and it came in less, but that same less figure should be constant.
But it's 109,000 a year.
I know, yeah.
And I've been using 150 a year.
But it won't be that.
It won't be that.
Wait, you have 150 in the budget?
I have 150 going from the farm fund, out of the farm fund, in the budget. 50 going to capital, 100 going to general. That's a problem.
Well, yeah, we know we have to adjust that, so.
Well, I mean, there's estimating at the end of this year, there'll be 150 in the farm fund, cash, reserve. So I'm saying for next year, our rent's 100, 109, 100 for all practical purposes. And then we eat away 50 of it. But 50 in capital isn't enough to get us to 350 by 2020, when we need 325,000 to replace that air conditioning unit.
So we should look to our budget here to pull how much to...
Well, first of all, we need to, I think, really make the adjustment on the revenue side. Because that way we know where our target's got to be on the other side, on the expense side.
Well, you pretty well got the revenue in there, don't you? Like it's pretty well set.
Well, the issue with the revenue is the farm fund part.
Right, right. And
Yeah,
we're-
that's what you're talking
Right
about.
now, it's like 50 grand going to general and...
No, 100,
100 to general and 50 to capital.
yeah.
And so, we know that's really not going to happen, so we need to adjust that, because, and again, bottom line, like you said earlier, instead of a $75,000 problem, we got a $125,000 problem. And then we can address the $125,000 problem. But we got to stay true with the revenue that is accurate. It's not a guess what we got coming in there, because we know this is what we're going to get. And so we gotta get that adjusted. But adjusting that at the same time, we go right to the next step is, okay, we gotta attack the rest of it then.
You gotta find cuts or something.
Well, maybe Anita, go through what we did do, and
Okay.
then we can talk about the other things we think might be opportunities, and then see
Right,
versus 125, how short we still are.
Right.
If we were able to get those things in there.
right.
You got this on this other sheet then?
Right, and the next page, this and the next page.
Okay.
See?
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So, transfer from farm fund was the first thing, that's 100, which is squishy at best. Lisa Fancher agreed to give us 25 from the county, I say county recorder, but either one of the two, one of her automation funds or both of her automation funds. So that's 25,000. You can see I took out an increase, now let's be clear, this isn't me. These are things I heard from
Right.
Members of the committee.
members of the committee. So when I say I took out, I mean I typed it up. We took out the increase for the clerk in the courts. She received a 21% increase in January of this year. So we took out an increase for next year. That's a non-union position. It doesn't have to increase every year. That seemed excessive. The next few items, we did talk to Sheriff about the one day that Kyle and Mike were in, and so he said okay to all of this. Well, he said not okay for two things we took out, but uniforms, training, you see that in there twice. He put in uniforms and training for the new deputies he's going to hire as a part of the safety tax. And what we talked to Sheriff about is he can't hire until we can pay for them all in from the safety tax fund. You can't put any more in the general fund related to those new people. The safety tax has to fund 100% of them. So that's the 6,000 out of uniforms, 10,000 out of training, and then you see uniforms and training again, and that's because even after taking out these two people, it was way over what his run rate was. And he says, well, I know there's retirements. I said, you have retirements every year. Here's your run rate every year with 2 retirements. So he's had 2 retirements a year for the last 3 years, and I said, just leave it in. So then that's 10 out of both of those as well, another 10. So that's 10, 20, 36,000 right there. Medicine, he had medical expenses and medicine expense, and the medical expense was at the run rate, so, and that's high anyway, so I just took out the medicine. I said that's a duplicate. And then you see the 50,000 on the safety tax.
That's additional cars.
Right. So I said, yeah, if he wants 4 cars, 2 got to come from the safety tax or something else, somewhere else. We're only funding 2. We took his 100 and dropped it to 50. So that's the 50 there. I had asked, or we had talked to him about skipping an increase for Chris Drake. He's a new employee. He started in March. Does he need an increase already in December before it's a year? Well, in conversation with Sheriff, then we put it back in. $437. So that's back in. I guess that's out still. So no increase for
I
Chris.
think we reduced the amount or something.
Maybe that's it. I don't know what we ended up with there. The next several lines are in the administration management fund Electricity seemed to be over trend by 10, so I added 10 there. Household supplies over the trend by 1,500, so I knocked that down. But water, in talking to you, Sherry, you felt like it's going to increase 50%.
That's what they had said. Now they're hedging on it since it's the new mayor, but it's still going to go up again, but it might not be the whole 50. It might just be a 25 to 30.
Okay,
I
I don't
did
know.
double check that, but that's so iffy that
So that extra 5,000 got it to 50% increase. So that 5,000 could go back the other way if we hear something different from the city. But for right now,
Don't count on it, huh?
I don't know. I don't know.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Public defender, those increases were completely eliminated. Based on conversations with members of the committee that they did not come. So, and the comment from the Judge Kinzer, who said he felt like they were fairly paid.
right.
So, state's attorney, those assistant state's attorneys were in at 2.5%. Those were reduced to 2%. Probation, we did talk to Tom in probation. That was a long discussion. Not happy. But he helped us out by, really the big thing Tom did was, said not to put the tuition reimbursement here. He put it in his probation fees. That's $3,500. By the terms of their union contract, they have to have it. So they have to have it budgeted, but nobody's taken advantage of that the last several years. So he doesn't think it will happen next year. He put it in his probation fees, so that helped us out. Auto maintenance, this was the one that was a kind of a struggle, and I don't know why. The run rate is $1,500, or the run rate is $1,000, and he had $2,500 budgeted there. So I took $1,500 out. It's over the run rate. Education and dues, same thing. It's a $600 run rate every year. He had $1,000 in there, so I reduced it for $400. Those were all discussed with the department heads. Assessment, we talked to Bob about his department and reductions there, and we increased the increases for Bob and his chief deputy were reduced to 2%, and that brought us back almost $1,000, $978. And then tax map services, Bob, was that what we left it at, minus 5,000, or did we decide something else?
No.
You felt that should stay.
You reduced tax map services, which is fine, because you said, well, don't worry about going, because I said there's a good chance I'd go over, and you said, don't worry about it, because you're going to have to do the work, we pay the bill, and we have to use contingency, we would. But I said, that's you guys' choice, because I know if I go over that amount, if that's the case. But what I said I could reduce and not be hurt on was the publication.
But explain to the committee the deal with that publication money. What was that going to do for us?
Well, what happens is, we obviously have implemented a new GIS mapping system. With that new system, there's a layer called land use map. It accurately calculates the home site, the amount of crop ground, the amount of pasture, and the amount of other farm ground more accurately than we're currently doing manually with the old system. Under statute, if we convert to that new land use map, there'll be farmers who will get some kind of a change in their, because assessments are broke down by those categories, just so your home site's one part of your land assessment, and then the farmland assessment is your crop, your pasture, your other farmland, and then obviously if there's a house and then outbuildings. The big line that might change would be the home site, because right now we standardize home site, either it's a half acre or an acre. No fluctuation depending on if if you know, driving around, there's some farmers that have yards that are 3 or 4 or 5 acres big, and there's some farmers that have just the lane up to the house, and they farm all the way up to the lane on both sides. So it's not being done so-called accurately right now. But if we make the change to land use maps, I would consider that a substantial change in their assessment, in the way it's calculated. Then by law, we're required to send them an actual physical notice by mail, and then also be published in the paper. Now right now we currently publish quarterly. We rip all the $26,000 parcels that's supposed to be put in 4 equal, so that's why the 7,500 is consistent every year. But we publish a quarter of the county every year. So I remove the farmland, number of farm parcels that we are going to publish anyway, and then calculate how many parcels we have left over of the other remaining, and times that's an easy, it's at 80 cents per line in the paper, calculated that out, and it was $8,300, right? So, was it 8303, Anita?
Well, let's see,
Yeah, we went from 7,500 to
15,800.
15,000, yeah, so it's 8303. We're not breaking any laws by the way we're currently doing it. If you really need the $8,000, I don't have to convert to that land use map next. It's a one-time thing. But it's not utilizing the GIS system to its fullest capability. So eventually it's going to have to be done. And the decision me and the finance committee are going to have to jointly make when we want to convert. The one-time hit, then we go back to the 7,500 every year, and that stays that way going forward. So I offered it. You guys decide what you want to do. You want to kick, like Mike said, kick the can down the road. You can. It's not earth-shattering to do that this year, but we got to do it eventually, and I would, within the next 2 or 3 years, it needs to be done. So we have to decide when we want to do it, and the kicker is we spent $300,000 on the GIS system, and it seems silly not to utilize it over $8,300, fully utilize it. So, but if we're really in a bind, it can be done. No worse for the wearer. Does that make any sense? And I'd rather see that being reduced than reducing the tax map services $5,000 and then have to go use out of contingency anyway to pay for splits and combines.
Yes, does anyone have any thoughts about that? So instead of, I guess, what he's proposing, right now we have $5,000 in there, putting that back in his budget, and the debate then would be whether we take 8,300, an additional 3,300 out.
Or you can leave it like Anita proposed, reduce tax map services $5,000, and even reduce the 8,300 off. It helps, and then if we go over on tax map services, then we pay it out of contingency, because that work has to be done and processed.
I mean, the last 2 years, we have not used contingencies. We got to the end of the year, be this year and last year, and we bought a car with it, and still had some left over. It seems like...
And the tax map services is, when
Right.
people are changing ownership and those things, those are your expenses to do that, correct?
Right, right.
And I think you commented to us that day, we talked to you in the office, that it just depends on how much activity and property changing hands and those kind of things. So it's been lower the last couple of years, but you were just, who knows what's going to happen.
I mean, it's kind of an unknown, but we're always trying to budget correctly rather than going over, and so 28 was a pretty comfortable number for me. Now I can run it tighter if you want, and then see how it plays out. And I'm going to have to process the work one way or the other, because it's by deed, it's, you know, you have to do a split when they record a deed, and so it has to be done. So whatever that budget's out to, we put a budget out to. I guess then there's three options. One, leave it like this, and then we have an exposure potentially if there's a lot of land changes or property changes, that we may have to go in contingency for this. The second one is put it back in so we don't have to worry about that. And then that would put it back how its budget originally was, so we don't gain anything there from a budgetary concern perspective. And the third one would be take it out as it is right now listed here, or take out the 8,300 for the publications, which is the redoing the lot sizes or whatever. And then you gain 13. And then we're going to have to pay that some. So we can go anywhere from 0 to 13. 0, 5, 8,300 or 13.
I'd go to 5. I like that one. I think the transfers might slow down a little bit. They've been high for the last couple of years, but with lower land prices, people aren't going to be as optimistic to sell.
I agree.
So you won't have it, I'm
Another
thinking you
thought
may
is,
not
just
have,
to throw this out there, is right now the GIS is going into a negative fund, the GIS fund, but the final payment, big payment is next March, and that 11,000 goes away forever. So then that GIS fund will start to build back up, and you can justify using the GIS fund to pay for that $8,300 publication.
Oh,
Which is a
But
good
not
thing.
next year, because you still won't be out of the negative by the end of next year, right?
oh.
But you,
No,
No,
next
next
year.
year.
We will be by next year.
it's going to be close, but...
It'll be close. I don't know that we're going to have 8,300 in
Right.
there.
So...
Because we're going to be, I think, negative
We
30.
can put it to the following year's
So we
budget.
can push it down one more year, and then definitely have enough money in the GIS fund to pay for it.
Perfect.
Then I would say that 8,300, we take that out for sure.
Okay.
And with the plan that we, in the 19 budget, take it out of GIS, would be what I would propose.
Perfect.
And then the 5,000, I guess it depends whether we want to hedge our bets that not a lot of land's going to change hands. Or,
well, we
Actually,
got
that's not really-
contingency
That's not really the
fund.
driving factor, it's whether larger farms get sold, inherited by the kids, and then they split the 120 acres into 5 different parcels, that's where it gets...
That may happen. That will happen.
Yeah. A lot of
Farm
folks-
owners are older.
A lot of folks dying.
Yeah. A lot of kids want to keep the farm too now. Or 2 or 3 out of 4.
well, and like Bob said, we're going to do that work no matter what.
Yeah.
It's just, what number do we think is the best number, and
Mhm.
do we put a buffer, not a buffer, but a bigger number in the budget for that? Or, as Anita was proposing, and what we talked about before,
I think I'd stay with that
Wait.
3-year trend.
stay with the 3-year trend, and if we go over, we got to take it out of
It's easier
contingency.
to sell down the road, this 3-year trend. Isn't it, usually?
I think we should use the contingency when we need to, and just
Okay.
As long as everybody realizes that
There's
we're,
risk, yeah.
we got risk, and
Right.
Bob may be coming back to us.
And then we'll just say, yeah, okay, Bob, we're
Keep it up,
sorry.
Bob.
We're
Then
sorry.
We say, Bob, you were right, and give them the money.
Tell them no more transaction, no matter what, just let them pile up the next year.
Okay?
Okay, Lisa, I don't know if I talked to you about, I think we talked about some of this, but I don't know that we talked about all of it, and I apologize if it's a surprise. We lowered your chief deputies to 2%. That was $1,800 there for the two of them. Ballots and supplies, we reduced 11,000, right?
Yeah, you definitely didn't talk to me about that one.
Okay.
But I could probably, can we do the same thing, sort of like you do with Bob? Like, if I do end up going over, that it could be covered with contingency?
Yeah, I put it down to 64. You had 75 in there, and I think the comparable years are 2016 and 2014. And 2016 was 62,000.
Right, because we paid, and I didn't research it, but for some reason we paid for some things out of something else that year. I have a note on my old budget papers, but I didn't put enough of a note, but go ahead.
And 2014 was 65,000.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe 65.
Well, and so between the two things, the 1 year where for some reason I paid for some things out of some other fund, and that I really need to get some new devices. But we are having our devices, all of our OS, the things that you vote on, we're having them all go through a maintenance this year. So maybe that will help extend their life, a few more years. I mean, I can kick that can down the road a little bit too, in getting a few more devices. The trouble is, or the thing that worries me, is that they don't make them anymore. And if we run out, we have to go to a completely 100% new voting system. Every precinct. We can't have like one kind of machine at one place and another kind of machine at another place. And I'm not ready to do that. We're not ready to do that. We don't need to do that yet. But I don't want to kick the can down the road so far that I'm not able to purchase any more of the kind of devices that we use now.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's going to be very, very costly to go to a completely new system. We've looked at them. I've drooled over them. They're pretty cool, but don't need it. No, not necessary. So, but it can be, I think, let's do that. That's fine.
Okay.
And I'll talk with my election vendor, Doug. He's the one where I would purchase those machines from, and find out, like, how many do you have, that for sale? Do you have like 7,000, sitting there, or do you have 7? Like
Right.
That.
Right.
But I'm okay with you doing that if we did go over it, you think it can be covered with contingency. Won't buy any new machines, this year, unless we can get it some other way. And we'll just go with our having them all maintained.
Thank you.
How much do those, I guess whatever you're talking about, how much do those cost? Is there?
I want to say around I'm just guessing, like a couple thousand for each one.
Well, there's probably not any room in the budget for this year. I was just looking at pretty tight.
Yeah, but I'm okay with you, doing that, and we'll.
For how long? 3 or 4 years?
Huh?
For how long? 3 or 4 years?
I wouldn't want to go more than like a couple of years without buying some new machines, because I don't think that, and again, I'm just sort of guessing here, and hopefully nothing bizarre happens in any state, in any election that makes us all have to go to all new voting stuff again. But at some point,
They keep talking about those, don't they?
at some point, and I'm hoping I'm gone at that point, there's going to have to be a whole new voting system brought in, just like there was in 2004. And like I said, it was costly. We were lucky then because the Help America Vote Act, the federal act, paid for the machines. Who knows whether that'll happen again, but I don't think that unless something bizarre happens, I don't think there'll be anything mandated to change our voting equipment for probably, hopefully 10 more years.
He said this must be awful, all the voting equipment that you use, and some precincts where there's hardly no turnout at all. Are you required to have the same machine there that you would in a higher volume area? Or can they actually take just a paper ballot and put it in a
No,
box on those where you can actually still,
No, it has to have,
it's got to be consistent no matter if they're running 1,000 through the machine
absolutely.
or running
Yeah,
15, 20,
I'm almost sure that'd be the case. You gotta go to 100% when you make a change.
especially when you got the other folks there that you watching everything.
We do have some, here's a thought, we do have a lot of extra, those TSX machines are the handicap sort of ones,
Hmm.
and Mark had bought several extra of those, and we don't use those very often, so maybe I can talk to our vendor about maybe making some kind of a swap for some of our extra of those machines to get some OS machines. So, there's some options, so I am not devastated by,
And you can still use those for backup for a regular
Changing
machine,
it.
can't you?
well, they're completely different,
Oh,
and I don't like them.
yeah.
It's all about me.
I'm sure it's confused me with electronic device.
Okay.
And then the next thing we did talk about was that 7,000 in maintenance that we think it may,
Right.
we had put it in here as a contingent for in case she's supposed to get like maybe 14 for a grant next year for her maintenance, which she gets some every year.
Right.
Um,
Our voter registration system costs approximately $15,000, and for almost every year, we get $15,000 or close to
14,
$15,000
yeah.
grants to cover all that, except for last year we didn't because there was no budget, so it didn't get put in the budget. But hopefully, I believe it is in the budget this year.
I think you
Hopefully
heard
it
it's
is.
in the budget,
Yeah,
right?
I had heard it
But
was.
Lisa doesn't trust what the state tells
No, I
her.
don't.
so-
Go figure.
Yeah, I know. So she had kind of hedged it here, and I said, we can't, really. But we added 7 at our overall contingent to cover it in case, at the high end.
And hopefully we
at
won't
the
have
highest
to-
level, but not here at a department level. So we'll leave this department level at $3,000, which is your other maintenance stuff. I think your copiers and stuff like that
Right.
is in there. And then took the 7 out for that voting thing. Okay, the next several lines are EMA, and I did not talk to Eric. This one came up when Kyle and Mike and I met, and Kyle was going to talk to him about just putting him to where his trend is. He had a lot of new things in there that are over his run rate, and so several items there. He had 2 computers in there. He had office supplies that is double what his run rate is. He added $2,100 in radio maintenance, and
And how much did he spend last year? That was pretty high last year, wasn't it?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it still isn't working correctly.
Correct.
Correct?
Correct.
Then why are we going to give another $2,100 to throw after something that didn't work with last year? Okay.
That was kind of the thought. I think Kyle and Mike were thinking the same thing. 1,600,
Last year.
Yeah.
And it didn't do it.
right.
Yeah, no.
So then, there's a negative there, $950, because the audit quote came in $950 over what was originally budgeted, so that's a takeaway. And then the next one is kind of iffy, and I think I sent an email about this too. I'll have a retirement, and we may do a non-replace. So that's about $14,000 if we can make that work. There's still some work going on to try and combine some jobs. I don't know if it's going to work, but we're going to try and get that. If we do that, that's another headcount drop in the admin area. 14,000 next year, but it'd be about 29,000 the year after, so for the full year. So that's what got us to the 75,000. Now, I forgot to mention, there is opportunity in group insurance, and I maybe, I'm not sure yet. We'll know on the 30th or so. I think I gave you those too, right? Did I give you health insurance sheet? No?
Don't remember seeing it.
Okay. No, I read different ones. Okay. There's a couple options. We can, Susie presented switching to a different network, right? And there would be a cost reduction if we did that, and it was like 5%. Well, then Sherry had a good question for Susie and said, because there were some differences, and so we're going to have Susie come on the 30th and explain to our employees the differences in coverage, higher co-pays, lower monthly costs, and let the employees decide. Your comment was, well, can't we get the exact same coverage? What would that cost? Well, it's 4.5% less, not 5, for exactly the same coverage, exactly the same deductibles, what do I want to say, co-pays. It was really the co-pays, and then like on prescription, the percentages there of coverage. It's exactly the same. It's a different network. Instead of the PPO network we have now, it's a POS network. But it has more doctors in it. It has all the doctors here in Iroquois and Kankakee County. There's 4 doctors in Hoopeston that are not in the new one. And the only change is going to be to go to a doctor in Chicago or up north.
You have to have a referral.
You have to have a referral. So we have Susie coming next Wednesday. She will have doctors lists. She'll have coverage lists for all our employees. They will take a vote on whether or not they would like to pay the same amount for all the same doctors and all the same coverage, or pay 5% less for maybe not all the same doctors.
Right.
And the inconvenience of having to sometimes get a referral. So we'll see how that plays out. If it plays out, that could be, because that 5%, the county pays 50% or 75% of that. So the savings to the county would be $35,000. So that's the county share.
That
Yeah.
would be nice, so.
That's only the general fund share. That's not like all the other funds, I don't count them. But just the general fund could save $35,000 if that's the choice. But I don't know that. I have that in my back pocket as a hopefully.
That's $35,000, I think.
Right.
Other big thing that we've talked about would be the ETSP joint dispatch stuff. So Anita and I were talking, whenever it was, 2 weeks ago.
Probably.
My days are running together. But we got talking about, I guess I asked her the question is, why, and I always get the bodies confused here, but why couldn't the ETSB help fund the joint dispatch for the labor at least?
Right.
And there was that, and then my other big question is, we're investing a lot of money into this next generation thing, and is that even necessary? What are the other counties doing? What does the state expect? Not saying we don't need to do it, but do we even know are we the only guys investing in this, or we're behind, or where are we on all that? And I guess my gut feeling is that Iroquois County normally isn't at the cutting edge of any of those things on adopting things, and my gut feeling is that I have a feeling we're investing in it and nobody else is, and normally we're the last ones to get GIS and everything else. Why would we be the first ones in a county of 30,000 people to be investing money into something like that? And so then Anita got a hold of somebody from the state police, is that?
Yeah, from the state police. I went on the website for whatever the statewide administrator for 911, not the state police, and I got a voicemail. And the voicemail said, if you have financial questions, call this person, and if you have technical questions, call this person. So I called the guy on the financial side, and I asked him both those questions. We talked really at great length. He was very helpful. Actually, Mike was in my office when he called. He called me back. Mike was in my office, put him on speaker so we could both hear what he was saying. Kind of said, he did say, like Sangamon County uses 35%. They pay 35%. The 911 ETSB pays 35% of the dispatch salaries because they have documented that 35% of the calls that come in there are 911 calls. Well, so I went to NIDA's monthly report, and it's 34% last year, 33% this year. So it's kind of like, if they paid 34%, what would that mean? And then if they paid 34% and we took the reduction to City of Watseka and split it between city and the county, since we're the biggest bulk, how much savings could there be to the two of us? And it's like $56,000. But we don't have any authority over the 911 budget. That's their board.
Right.
So I emailed that information to them, to the people on that board that I know are on that board that I had the email, and shared it with them. That's all we can do.
I think another thing you left out there is they're also, with the new tax or whatever that thing is, they're getting a lot more. The ETSB 911 is getting a lot, $200,000 more a year than what they were previously.
Right. They're going to,
So
in
they're
a
getting,
full year.
They're in a full year, they're going to
Right.
be getting, which I think we'll only get half of it, or
Maybe
8
half.
months or something,
8 months.
whatever.
Next
at
year.
most of it next year, so 100 and some thousand at least, or 100 at worst.
Right.
More money will be coming into 911 ETSB, and so I guess with all the budget problems we have, and the fact that these other counties are behind doing the exact same thing, so there's a precedent, and we have good data to show how many phone calls there were. It's kind of like, well, why aren't we doing this when we're struggling to make the budget balance? But we have someone on the board on our committee here, but we need, I think you guys have a meeting, Charlie, tomorrow night or something?
I requested to go over.
Well, Kyle and I in the email, Anita sent the email, but it was Kyle and I's recommendation that hopefully you guys could adopt that, and you need to talk with your board, I understand, but it seems logical, especially, I don't think
In our
there's,
position, it seems very logical.
it seems logical for the county, and with the additional money coming into the 911 ETSB, that it's not going to, from what we can see, wouldn't put a huge financial constraint on that budget either. So hopefully we'll get positive news tomorrow night, but that would be a
See what
huge,
happens, but I think it's
a huge savings there. The other thing on the equipment and
Yeah.
next generation.
That is interesting, because I did talk to this Carl Pound about the next generation. And I said, just like I did the capital improvement like this, I wanted to do something like this. I said, we need a strategic plan for how we're going to get to the money needed. So, one, how much does this next generation cost? Can anybody tell us that? And two, when is this drop dead date? We're hearing 2020, right? We're hearing 2020. And he said, no. He said, that's not exactly right. 2020, the state has to have the backbone in place that the 911 centers can hook into if they want. Now, he said, is it a good thing? Yes. Is it better technology? Yes. There's no firm date. That's what he told me. Now, Sheriff called me back, and he talked to somebody else, and they said, oh, yes, or he read the law and interpreted that, yes, it needs to be. We need to do it by 2020. That's the part. You can't, if we need $800,000, I don't even know what the number is to get for next generation. What is the number? And they need all this extra money they're getting from the telephone tax to pay for this next generation, then can they not fund the salaries? That is the issue.
Hasn't a lot of that already been set up though already, and part of it started on the payment plan for that? The way I was understanding it at the last couple of 911 meetings, it kind of alluded that a lot of those things were already in place and had been paid for or were in the process of, you know.
I know that we bought $180,000 worth of equipment last year, and software. It's the software that we did. But I don't know if that's all of it, most of it, I don't know.
And I think that, isn't most of that already installed and ready for, yeah.
Yes.
I was under the impression that it was well on its way.
Okay.
But I don't know that for sure. I'm
Yeah.
just going by
And he
Yeah.
what
also
was said at the
said,
meeting.
maybe you should forward that email to, so all these things that we're talking about here, Anita spoke with while I was there in the office. I said, you need to send him an email. You need to send this guy from the state an email back and just re-list out everything we discussed about and get him to put it in writing what we're,
That he agreed.
that he
This is what
agrees that, yes,
said.
this is what he said, and he has done that.
Yeah, and
And
he
he
did
has.
that. So I laid it all out. I mean, that was Mike's suggestion, very good.
Right.
And,
And he's already responded?
oh yeah, he did right away. Well, he
He did
didn't,
it like-
I sent it on Thursday afternoon, and I didn't get a response on Friday.
Last month.
But Monday morning I came in, it was right there within 10 minutes or 15 minutes, absolutely, blah, blah, blah. But he also talked at length about the grants that are available
Right.
to do some of it. And Sheriff followed up on some of that, and he said, now what Carl told me was a little different than what Sheriff told me. Carl told me, so far, for every county that's requested money, they've been 100% funded. They've gotten it all. He says, we don't know if that's going to last because, you know, as we go farther along, more people are going to ask for it.
First
So,
come, first served.
right. So it behooves you to watch when the grants come out and apply for them quickly, sooner rather than later. Now, Sheriff told me the person he talked to at the state said that you can only get grants for what you've already spent. That you can only get a reimbursement of costs you've already incurred. That you can't get a grant to install new stuff. Right. That you have to spend the money first. Well, I said, but we've spent $185,000. Can't we get $185,000 back then?
And then
To buy the next stuff,
Yeah, we already.
to get the rest of the stuff. I don't know. So he's going to look into that, and that'll probably be discussed at your
All right,
meeting
we
too.
appreciate
That would take some of the pressure off the ETSB board for trying to fund everything out of that telephone tax.
I do think that was stated too, that they were in the process of working out some grants too. That was said in some of those meetings as well, so. Where that's going now, of course, we don't know. but-
Yeah, right. And I mean, we don't know, I mean, the joint dispatch number budget could be way off. That's my concern. If we lose arbitration, it could be, that 56,000 could be nothing. We could still end up,
Right.
right,
Well, that would impact,
right.
if we agreed that they're gonna fund a certain percentage of those salaries, that,
Well, that's true. And the salaries
that
are all of a
number may need to
sudden,
be bigger out of the joint.
Exactly, in consideration of-
911 ETSB, because
the salaries
the
are.
salaries are increasing. So,
Well, even for the arbitration part of it. they-
so that's what I mean.
Yeah, I mean,
The incremental.
the retro back, so, yeah, okay. That makes sense.
I think that, from what I understand in the discussions we had with this Carl from
Illinois State Police, yeah.
I think that's something that kind of seems to be a no-brainer, and every other county's already doing it, so, and that there's money there that we don't have in the 911, or sorry, the joint dispatch fund, so I guess Kyle and I, on behalf of the finance committee, we're strongly recommending to the 911 ETSD board that you guys get that in your budget, but
You don't have to put that in a writing, go through the state to do it either.
But, so I think that's a big opportunity, so that was 56,000. I think the other, and then maybe you and Sheriff talked about this again, that this lead that's up there, that's a zero,
Yeah, he did say that, he asked the state about that, and no, it cannot be used, and there's an Attorney General's opinion on that.
Okay.
That it can only be used for equipment and labor to take the call. And
Okay.
leads is used to, like, look up information on somebody. So, they can't...
What we
use
had
it.
talked about was, could things like leads be also part of the 911 ETSB stuff, and they said
No.
no. So that was one of the other things we were looking to, okay, we don't have money everywhere, so we were trying to, how can we get
Yeah,
things
well,
covered?
it used to be leads.
Leads, it's,
Law enforcement agency data.
Oh, that stuff, okay.
yeah, so we,
You don't know what they're gonna be.
No, it
leads.
can't come out of 911.
it just
Oh,
can't,
yeah.
we can't get it from the,
That's how you do the criminal history check in the background,
Mhm.
run plates and all that stuff.
Yeah, you kind of pull over a car.
I think the last big item I had for an opportunity would be, so that would be 35,000 on the health insurance, hopefully.
Yeah.
The 911, or the joint dispatch transfer of 56,000. And then the last one I had was the health department rent, which I know is an unresolved issue, but,
What was the last one?
the health department rent, so
Health
there's obviously some background, and I don't know if I know the whole background, but it
What do
was,
you mean by background?
well, I'm just saying that there was, when the health department moved here, Russell, I think, knows the history better than I ever would, but when the health department moved here, it was done as a cost savings measure because they were paying rent up the road,
Oh,
and they
hey.
moved here and they're not paying rent here
Exactly.
today.
I was there when they did that. The feeling was that we're still heating electricity to this area over here without use.
Yeah.
So it's just wise to use that and no longer, well, we sold the building too.
So there's good reasons why that was done
Yeah.
when it was done, but I think...
I'm not saying they should pay any rent now, but I think.
And I guess that's what we were kind of proposing is that, okay, that maybe they should be paying rent. And an agreement needs to be done between, I guess, this committee and,
It's just trading dollars between
well,
departments.
but they're not, they got money out of the general fund that would, right, that would, is where that would come. So it's not just trading dollars in
Right,
totally, yeah.
it would be from their
Their fund.
fund to the general fund, which
So-
is
Substantial.
They have, yes, I don't think they're in a cash
No, shortage.
position like we are in the general fund.
In the long term, it's still a good move.
I think so. So it's a matter of, I guess, this committee and D coming to some kind of agreement of how that would work. But, we'll just need to have...
I see your 539 square foot, is that pretty much what everybody else?
Board of
is
Health,
doing?
okay.
That's
yeah.
the cost. That's
So I think-
per square foot. So, you know, I have an issue with using the term rent because it's not really rent, it's just reimbursement of
Yeah,
the occupancy cost.
yeah, okay.
Yeah,
But I guess what Don just pointed out is that's not necessarily the decision in its entirety. It'd be similar to the 911 situation that their board would
The
need
health board.
to, the health board, maybe we need to have a discussion with Marvin, the chairman now, is that correct? Or
Michelle Fairley.
okay. Well, to see if we couldn't...
Iron out the details of...
Iron out the details and get it in their budget and see if we can make that happen. I don't know
That'll help tremendously.
if,
The move-in was
I
very
guess it would be
economic.
somewhere between 10 and 15,000, something like that was kind of what we were ballparking, or what?
11,500.
Okay, so 11,000. That's what was proposed by the county.
So how close does that all make us?
So if we add those several items, we would have, what, 35 plus 56 plus 11 plus 102,
Fine.
5. But we also have the $50,000 problem that we talked about earlier, so technically that would put us at 102.5 better off than where
We
this started today, but we also have the 50,000 fund problem that we were discussing earlier, so we'd still,
50,000 fund?
Trouble?
Farm.
the county
Farm, oh, I see.
Oh, 50,000.
So we'd still be
That's right,
short
I misunderstood.
25,000.
Farm, yeah.
Yeah, farm.
So maybe
rent.
it would be a good idea to just have the farm bid for a year and rebid it again. And then we still have that opportunity for solar at that point in time as well.
And that doesn't get into that first conversation we had, all the longer-term capital problems that we need
Right.
to be putting money to the side.
Exactly.
So even if we can get that squared away and the farm isn't a problem for this year, and we're so-called in the black for,
This year.
say we got
won't
this
be next year.
102,000, we were 25,000 better off,
Right.
we need to be, in my opinion,
Right.
planning for these big expenses that are coming down the road and putting some money, more money in the capital fund to help fund those things.
I did, Sheriff and I had several long conversations over the last couple weeks. And at one point I did say that, I said, every year we get the budget done and everyone's all, thrilled and woohoo, we did it, we're in the black. And I'm just sick. I'm sick every year because we've done no long-term planning. And that's just not responsible. So we've had more discussions about long-term planning this year than we've ever had before, which is a step in the right direction.
So we do have some options for that long-term planning then financially, if we just take a look at it.
Well, right now, we don't have, so this doesn't have, and I'm by no means a parking lot expert, but from what it sounds like, that south parking lot over at the jail,
Yes.
courthouse, whatever, is in, according to our county highway engineer, said it's in bad condition. So I'll take him at his word for it, and I'm sure he knows what he's talking about.
I would hope so.
This doesn't have that in there,
Appears it had no base to it, which originally when they put it in, it's asphalt,
So-
top, and dirt.
That's just one of those things that even if we could get these last three items that we just talked about, these opportunities, and okay, that gets us theoretically in the black on the budget, it really doesn't, because we still got,
$100,000. Well, right, 50. I'd take 50 back from the farm fund so that we 50 into 100 from the farm fund into capital improvements and only 50 to the general fund. Then we're still at a $25,000 problem.
Well, we still have money from the revolving loan fund, and we can take part of that back.
that's, I guess, all these things, yeah, makes the,
So that's where we're at right now. I think really by finance in September, we'll have at least two big questions answered on ETSB and group health,
And health department.
and hopefully health department.
when do they have meetings, or what's the health department?
The first Wednesday of the month, and we have most, they won't have one in September. And I'll expect that to
Well, we need to figure out a solution on how to get those guys together, or what needs to be done in order to at least have that discussion.
Just budget.
Any other comments or thoughts on the budget?
So do you need a motion to accept these corrections this time? What do we do? Why not?
I'm still working for it,
Yeah.
there's nothing.
Because we really don't take a motion until we get
Okay.
to whether we want to post it or not.
Okay, that's right.
So, yeah, we're
I
not
think
ready.
they all seem, out of this, the $74,000 gap seems pretty reasonable that we can achieve those ones.
Right.
I think those three big items are a problem, and getting to the bottom of the capital
Yep,
thing on the cars in particular,
yep.
I feel like
Yeah.
the back to the Capitol just briefly, that, okay, we know we got parking lot problems, and we know we got a couple of these other things. When they happen is up in the air, but we obviously need to be setting money aside for someday when they happen on those big ticket items. But the car thing, I think we gotta get to the bottom of, because that's
Right.
an ongoing issue all the time, and
It's every year it comes down.
it's an every year we talk, or if I haven't been here very long, but every year it's discussed,
Right.
and we don't really know what the plan is on
Right.
how often we need them, or what the usage is, and the cost, and all those things. We need to get clarity on that. I don't know if we just, I think Anita's tried to work with the sheriff on that, but I feel like we need to get to the bottom of that sooner rather than later, and that'd be good if he was here, but I feel like we've made several requests and haven't gotten the real information.
You know, those requests have come from Anita, or have they come?
Last finance committee, we said that we wanted a plan.
I know, but did they just come from Anita, or should?
Yeah, I guess whatever is the more formal thing, but I mean, I think when Anita sent the email to them or whatever, it said, the finance committee said they would like these things, and that was the response to, it's addressed to Kyle, and I guess it was not exactly like we were requesting.
Maybe you should do a question fill in the blank.
We did.
We did that.
I did. It was the chart, and I highlighted the thing. It just didn't work. I put the numbers in whatever year they need to go. Didn't get it. Okay.
That is that. Okay, the next thing on the docket was discussion and action on revolving loan fund resolution. I don't know who wants to speak. Ken, if you want to say something. Background, we had a meeting with Mr. Dietrich and Mr. Bell and Russell, Charlie and I. John was there to talk about those changes that were proposed by Sherry and how to incorporate those. And we can put something together. You can take it from there, Ken.
Yeah, we had a meeting, we had to hurry it up a little bit. I apologize or correct or whatever. At the last finance meeting, I said that Craig Golkin was on that committee. I think he was totally off. He was on the loan review committee. Roger Dietrich, who was there with me, was on this committee, the ad hoc committee that looked into this. So we scrambled to get a meeting together fairly quickly because Roger was already planning to be out of town, leaving town for a couple of weeks on the 13th. So 5 out of the 6 were able to do it on short notice, so that was pretty good. I tried in the copies that Amanda got for you, I tried to use a little bit of bolding and a little bit of italics so maybe your thought process could follow the discussion a little bit, but I'll probably need to add a couple of things to that item by item. If any of Charlie or Mike or Russ, if my interpretation is off base a little bit, please join in so we can discuss this thing adequately. So let me just start from Sherry's list. She made a list of suggestions that we got at the last finance. Is that what it was? Yeah. So I'll go right down the list of those. I don't know if you guys still got that list or not. The First Amendment was on page 3, item 3, sentence 2. Originally, when I sent that to you, it had the italicized crossed out, and now it has the bold, which was the suggestion crossed out. we discussed that at pretty good length, and it was battled around that there is already an option to vote against or vote for somebody who was proposed for that position, and that also the discussion was it's a non-paid position, so we're not going to have a lot of people standing in line wanting the job. So maybe it would, I guess, to use lack of a better word, maybe it would be overkill at that point. The discussion could come later. Somebody on the full board. I don't know how soon do you all know about the appointments before the? How much time before the
At the
actual
board
county
meeting.
board? Just at the board meeting? They're not available in any other place? Yeah, that's
A couple days ahead, usually. Aren't they listed on the agenda?
Yeah. But anyway, that was decided that there was an option there for changing that or whatever. The rest of them were on page 4. The changes in the times are not a problem. The quicker you get after that debt, the better. As it gets staler and staler, you got less and less time to collect it. The only discussion there, I believe, was at this meeting that the 10-day to the 15-day, if you talk to somebody on 10 days and they're going to get it to you by the 20th or the 20th day or something, you wouldn't be able to follow that rule to a T. You'd need to give them the time that they promised, but there's nothing wrong with putting that in. That was agreed that's a good suggestion. So that's the next two. There was a new sentence added to page 4, item 6. That was suggested monthly, that be done monthly. On the original committee meeting, back when the ad hoc committee first met, it was, the state's program was a report every 6 months to the county board, basically. Back when the ad hoc committee originally met, it was suggested that was probably too long, so it was changed to a quarterly meeting. Changing it to a monthly meeting, again, could be maybe a little overkill because the previous comment there, the month for the collections, the one we'd be mostly worried about would be somebody that wasn't paying their bills. And that would be within 30-day period. It would get loud and clear what was going on there from the previous suggestions that Sherry had. So
you're just once again taking that out so that we will have no accountability for what your expenses and revenues are.
quarterly.
Well, that's not what it says.
Oh, I'm sorry. I guess it's because it was stated on the last page of the program. It was stated that there would be a quarterly report to the county board.
Yeah, that doesn't tell me anything because there's nothing there.
Well, that's not something that I think I certainly don't have the authority to do it, but even the committee would do it from that. That's why the loan review committee that would determine what reports are going to be submitted there. I think we need financial background people to make those.
No, but this is on what the fund actually has in it and what's spent out of the fund. So, okay, you're going to give me a quarterly report form, but you give me nothing to see what it is.
You want
She's thinking more like a balance sheet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not a problem for me.
Well, it must have been a problem because it's gone.
Well, the discussion was that we went from a 6 month to a quarterly report. Maybe that was a slight misinterpretation. I don't know, but a quarterly report that even in the past on all of the loans that have ever been made, there wasn't a lot of things that happened every day.
Well, then the report
Traditionally, it doesn't happen annually.
Yeah, sadly, the worst one. But I
get
don't know.
more donations and stuff like that in too. That would go in with that, would it not? Isn't that part of the revolving loan
I
fund?
don't understand that. There's no contribution to that.
To the revolving loan fund. So when the city gives you money,
Nothing goes revolving loan.
No,
It just goes for...
They have their own revolving loan, so their money
But
will
it's
stay
the
with
cost of
that.
operation of the whole thing.
It'll be a number, and then, like, the discussion that the blunt payments would go back into this fund, that would add to the fund, so it's coming back in. Any new loans that are made out, interest that comes, there would be more paid back than was loaned out, so that would be added to the fund, but there wouldn't be a huge change in that program. I mean, interest is interest, and that's it.
As a county fund, it would be a county fund, and it would be designated funds. So every month at the Finance Committee meeting, I give this committee a report for every single department, every single fund, and it would be in there. So a monthly report would be given. It would be, if we do it, it's always been given. It's always been there. And those account numbers that got set up were loan specific, so you could see the receipt. It's revenue and expense. It's not the balance sheet. It doesn't give the loan balance. What it does is show year to date
Where you're at.
what's paid.
Thanks, Anita, because my interpretation, I don't know what everybody else would say, would be that you were wanting somebody to make a presentation every month on what's going on.
Yeah. And I think there's two things here when we're talking. One fund, like what Nita just talked about, is the revolving loan fund, and I think that was getting confused with other revenue coming into the Economic Development Association.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so there's two different ones. But yeah, on the county one, just like Anita just said, that money, yeah, you look at that every 30 days on that, and you can see if anything's moved anywhere in or out.
Because of the other suggestions.
Because that's
that
under the
were
county,
made.
right, that's under the county checkbook.
When they're 10 days later, 15
Yeah.
days later, that's
What
when it starts showing.
NIDA does with paying phone bills or how much money they got coming in from a donation somewhere, yeah, we don't see that regular basis. Is that what you want to see more what?
No, I wanted to see just exactly like it says here, all expenses and revenues related to the RLF.
Yeah, and
Will
see,
presented monthly. They are, so that should not be
Yeah.
stricken, because they already are.
right.
But we
And
want
they
to
always will
verify.
be.
Yeah.
And they always will be because it's all in the government.
In that respect, I could almost speak for the rest of the committee. It's not a problem, it's just, it happens. And that was statements that were made, that happens anyway, so why would we need to make a presentation? I think it was that somebody's going to stand up and present that, and that would be probably overkill to do it every month instead of quarterly.
They wrote into it, then it should. So for the record, then you would put that you struck out in number 6 back in, correct?
I'm not the committee, but you got 3 committee members there. From that discussion, I don't see any
On
problem
number
with
6
that.
there.
Charlie or Mike, if it's Russ,
Yeah.
you guys,
Yeah.
I don't see any problem.
Yeah, yeah, because on that money, that's all coming out of the county's coffer, and it's not gonna happen unless the county board makes a move to start out with. Because whatever the revolving loan fund does, eventually it's going to be forward. Any dime gets transferred, it's gonna come back to the full county board.
Yeah.
And, so, yes. Charlie, you think we're talking about
Yeah,
that?
it's okay.
Now, the next one,
Mike,
there's no
yeah,
problem
yeah.
sticking that wording in either. It was intended to be presented, but like you say, Sherry, it didn't say that, but that was the intent, that it would be presented to the board. So there was no problem, discussion, no problem with that. On the very last one, the requiring insurance or additional collateral, the decision was made that we need to stick in, put it in italics there so you can see, that we need to stick in when available because no one has yet been able to come up with a situation where that's available. I could not find anybody who would insure that kind of loan. And Roger originally mentioned it, and in talking to T&D, they insure their receivables,
Right.
not loans that they get themselves. So we put in just when available, because without that wording in there, if it is not available, we can't basically make a loan. It's something doesn't exist.
Yeah, a company can always, if they got, somebody's, if they're gonna be doing business with somebody and they're producing a product and the product is being made and sent to somewhere, that's a receivable that they're gonna be looking at as soon as that product leaves the door. Now, traditionally, when the product leaves the door, well, that's usually 30 days, but you know what, sometimes it's 6 months, a year. So what they can do, they can basically go and get insurance, all money on that to come in. But, yeah, there's some expense. Sometimes if you're lucky at the super credit, you can get it for local banks.
We couldn't find anybody that would do that procedure on a loan.
Yeah, it's just like with the state stuff. Sometimes they borrow money cheap, sometimes they can't.
So I think that's all of the suggestions.
So what would they have to
Certainly.
add? They should have some collateral, or?
Yeah, that was another thing too, that the bankers on our board said that all the collateral that they have would probably be attached at first. If there was a risk involved there and they had a collateral that wasn't attached, you can go after that. But in order of most importance, the collateral would be picked up with the original loan, and if we saw an additional risk there and said, we got to have more collateral, then they'd have to come up with it. If they can't come up with it, they wouldn't get a loan.
Yeah, it's up to the committee to determine how much risk they're taking and
Yeah.
how much collateral they need.
And if the board don't like it, they won't approve it. I mean, the county board.
Yeah, yeah. The loan, Charlie, you're talking about the loan review
Yeah.
committee will go as hard as they can to get everything covered. Collateral being the normal coverage, and then if the board doesn't like what happened there, then it won't get approved. Or I guess the finance committee would be presented to the finance committee first, and even if it was approved in the finance committee, it could be disapproved on board time. Other questions or anything? If my interpretations weren't perfect, Mike, or Charlie, or Russ, point that out. There
I
was
know
a
we
lot
talked about
said at
last
that
month,
meeting.
Ernie, and you wasn't really in favor of it. How does this look to you?
Well, I think it's a good deal if it'll draw anything into this county.
You know, perfect example, right there in your backyard, what they did over there with that Wendell place.
Yeah.
It's, that would probably never happen if it wasn't for this revolving loan
Yeah.
fund, and so.
God only knows the county needs it. They need everything they can
We
get.
need some type of economic expansion of some kind, because it seems like it's just going backwards more every day.
The toughest part right now is that the state's gotten themselves into a financial position where they have a bad reputation. So any companies that are out of the state that might want to come to the state, they look at the list and they've got 6 or 8 states they might go to, and they take their red marker out, and Illinois is the first one they cross off. People that are already in the state, doing business in the state, they're familiar with what's going on. If they want to expand, sometimes that'll happen. But it's difficult to get anybody from out of state to consider coming to the state right now. Hopefully they'll work themselves out of that. I mean, the picture is probably not as bleak as the news media makes it out to be, but it's pretty bleak still.
I guess from, it's a little off topic, that along those lines, what are, like, you and the IDA board or whatever, what are we doing to, are we out actively talking to companies? I mean, what, I guess, are we just waiting for them to come talk to us, or?
Waiting doesn't work anymore. That's
Well, and that's, I guess, kind of what I was getting at, is that we're sitting here 8 miles from the border. I don't, if it were me, I would go 8 miles to the east. I mean, obviously I have a vested interest here, and so do the rest of us, and that's why we're here.
And we can
But if
try.
I just got, like you just pointed out, got to throw a dart at the map, Iroquois County probably.
You just dug into my wound.
Well, but I think it's reality though too, and I guess that's why, that's what led to my question.
Oh, yeah,
What are we doing to try and overcome that? Because nobody's just gonna say, as you pointed out, come knocking on the door and, hey, we really want to be in Iroquois County, when I could be 8 miles to the east and be in Newton County.
Yeah, I'm not going to speak for Ken here, but, you know, one thing I am impressed with is the marketing that they've been working on. which is probably the best thing to keep
No,
the
and I think
name
that,
in
like the
front.
video and that
Yeah.
stuff was good.
And the demographics of the neighborhoods that we're looking at here, because there is some unique things about the demographics of the neighborhoods that's not the same with some of the other places, so. And we just,
We rely a little bit on the loyalty to our state. And this might be the difference here, this document and this help in our county, keep them in.
Yeah, we had no efforts at all. I mean, I do a lot of things like, I talked to Anita one time and I said, I use too much bandwidth. I've got constant financial, things running on my computer. Just if you see somebody that's planning on expanding, it looks like a potential, and you try to find somebody to contact. And, if you can get by the secretary, you might be starting to make a little bit of traction, but it's just tough to do that sort of thing because the state doesn't help. It used to be when I first started doing this a few years back, we would get leads from the state. They would send us, I would say every month DCEO would send us something, a list of these companies that were looking to expand and looking where to go. And as time went on, the list got shorter and shorter, and we hear nothing from them anymore. And if there is anything that you hear about on the news media, it's in Chicago or the suburbs, so everybody's at a stalemate. They're just kind of trying to do what they can with what they can. We've had the success we've had in the last couple of years have been mainly with expansions and restaurants. We've got enough of those at this point. But it's needle in the haystack, and if you keep searching long enough, you'll finally get stuck and you'll find something that you can work with. But if we are doing nothing, I guarantee you nothing would happen if we weren't out doing something.
I guess even along those lines, because I've heard you talk about even keeping the businesses that we have, and when I look around, we don't have even an equipment dealership, and we do have a but I mean a full-line equipment dealership in the county anymore.
yeah.
I guess, just as an example, and I don't know what that whole process was when AHW made the decisions that they did, but are we actively talking with them long before those decisions are being made to basically...
Well, I don't think they
Expand rather
know.
than leave, or...
They didn't.
Yeah, I mean, because they basically contracted it,
Right.
and
Mhm.
I guess to me, we don't have much, as we Paul pointed out, there isn't much left, and what are we doing to make sure another one of those situations doesn't happen again, because
Well,
there's not many of those guys left, but even,
Well, it's getting down to the trucking firms. Just by a mailbox in Indiana can save them a lot of money.
but I guess this is what I'm talking about, is that how are we,
Several of them from
We haven't
Central Park
conversations.
area have gone that way already.
it's too late now, but the AHWs of the world
Mike, we have
that are in the county.
a lot of our existing employers. I mean, in contact with them all the time. In situations like that, I've mentioned before that sometimes I have to sign a non-disclosure
Yeah.
paper, so you can't talk. Well, it's kind of like, a lot of them go far beyond that. They're not going to talk to anybody about anything until they make their decision. So, I mean, the only way that I probably would have had that is if I'd have just called them up and said, you guys aren't thinking about moving or anything, are you? And then they would have said, no. Even if they were one step away from making that move, you're not always going to get that information in time to change it.
yeah,
Staying in contact with them helps.
even the upper management employees had no idea what it was coming down.
Well, I'm not picking on them, I mean, that's for,
But that's
it
the
was
way,
just an example.
that's the way corporate America does things.
Sure.
This is how we can do it.
They have to,
Bam, bam.
so they get picketed every day.
Well, so what's your changes? You look okay now?
Are we gonna, I think, at the same time we discuss this, we need to discuss if we're still gonna leave that $515,000 completely there. I recommend that we reduce that amount to $250,000 and put $265,000 back in the general fund, with the contingency that if something comes along, we're open to that. But I think the whole $515,000 in there at this point in time is not going to do us any good when we're in dire straits, and they don't have anything on the front burner that's boiling over. So
So you think they take this money that the federal government gave to us for this one given purpose and use it for something else?
I'm not saying that it has to be used for something else, but I'm saying it would be nicer for it to stay in the general fund.
What's all gonna stay?
Nicer.
All stay in Iroquois County's checking account.
I understand that. I'm just saying what would be available to Ken to work with off the top would be $250,000.
Anything in the general fund will be spent, because that would be budget money.
I think you probably, if it was all in the fund, in the revolving loan fund, you're only, maybe a month away of getting it anyway, you just, resolution, and you take it out of there. I mean, it's gonna require a resolution if it's put in there, my interpretation, but what's that take? That's one meeting to the next.
But we could just start out with it in there, and then for you to get more of it, one meeting to the next, get another resolution. I mean, we can pass it back and forth all we want to. That's just my recommendation.
I guess, in respect to that, Sherry, my recommendation would be to move it just so that it's there. If it's in the general fund, I won't ever be able to get it back. It'll be gone. So, it will be. It's good when you're behind. You've done a tremendous job of coming down to where you're at.
We
with
have
that.
gone from having $200,000
Yeah.
in the general fund on November 30th to having $1.6 million over the last 5 years.
Right. And even this time, just this budget right here, I'm amazed at what you just said that you've been able to clean out of there. But if the money gets into the general fund, it'll kind of disappear. I mean,
Yeah, and I don't think Sherry is in general funds, because it's not, actually, well, it's in the general fund capital expense line right now, right?
It's in the capital improvement fund.
Capital improvement fund, not the general fund.
No.
That's good. Better.
Yeah, it is. Because if it's in the general fund, that's will get spent. The capital,
Okay?
If it's in the general fund, we're actually acting like we're not spending it anyway. Right? We're making a reference to it as being there, but we usually, in our budgeting thing, use the other figure, right?
I don't
What's
understand
available?
what you're saying.
Well,
I'm confused.
these expenses and incomes into the general fund doesn't make any reference to anything of the balance in there.
No, right. It's current year revenue and expenses that we
Right,
work
current year,
with, not the,
Balance of it in there.
right.
Okay. Anyone
so, right
finished
now.
with that?
I guess the last thing to it might be that any amount is better than what we have had. And what I mean by that is it's been well over 2 years before we could even address the revolving loan fund. It's just since the day that the state shut it down completely there, and it was renegotiated forever, and finally got it going again. And there really hasn't been much of a factor, so it's been difficult to say anything to companies about anything. My opinion is we don't want to give all the money to anybody. We're much better off to have smaller loans to a number of places so that we can maybe plant a few more seeds that'll grow in different directions. Don't put all our eggs in the one basket. So yes, Sherry, $250,000 would be a great start. It's just that, to me, taking it back from the fund for a dire emergency would be better than going after it. And maybe it got budgeted for something else, so well, look. When you guys come and get it because you need it for something else, it's gone. You know it's gone. It's not up in the air.
If we really need it, we can always go borrow.
And as I understand, the main thrust is try and attract people to move into Iroquois County, because there's a fund there, a business that's willing to pay them to move here and go to work here and pay taxes back here.
I get all that. $250,000 is a lot of money.
Yeah, one time we
not to be sneezed at, so.
had $1 million in recycling money laying there, and I think we've been sitting on, what, 100,000, it's probably down to 70 now, in our, what we call recycling fund, we call it
Solid waste.
solid waste fund, it's about down to 70.
Well, that's the cash portion. There's 150 in a CD that's sitting out there. What you see every year.
So we got about 200,000 altogether then, between cash and the
I
CD.
can't answer off the top of my head, and the treasurer's not here today, so.
But and when we get in trouble before, we have borrowed against that, where we used it and we put it back. Before,
But when you borrow against it, you're paying interest on that.
well,
The
we
loans
didn't.
were made to a different fund
Yeah,
historically.
Yeah, it's just like routine cases where they'll borrow.
Interest on it.
Yeah. Take it for a while, leave a little IOU laying there, and when you get it coming in, slide back over there. The IOU. Well, in today's agenda, we did have action on this. If everybody's accepted with the language now, should we move ahead on this?
The motion.
I think we need it, don't we, Ken?
This is the program strategies
Yeah.
and not the
This
resolution.
is the resolution.
The
The resolution
resolution
is what states the amount.
Right.
But do we need this action on the resolution?
The original comment that Sherry made, well taken, was that the resolution used this document as its guideline. So if the resolution was passed, then okay, then the document was at the same time. That's what sent us back to working on this document. So you kind of got to say, okay, this document's good.
That's
Whether
not
that
what it
needs
says on the agenda, though.
Whether that needs another resolution or not, that's out of my comfort zone.
See what I mean?
I understand what you're saying, yes.
The two go hand in hand still.
So there
So it
was,
should have said program strategies on the agenda rather than resolution.
I would say so.
So our discussion has been about the program strategies, and then there have been comments about the resolution and the amount there.
Well, I'm sorry, I thought with all the strategies that was the problem last month, I thought we were going to get worked out. So why don't we approve the strategies, and then we can fight over the rest of it later? And so we don't come back and start on this subject again that we started on 3 months ago.
Is that a motion?
It's a step forward.
That's a motion.
A motion to approve the
Updated strategy
updated
for the revolving
revolving loan fund strategies document? Revolving loan fund program strategies document. We have a second?
I'll second that.
Call the roll.
McTaggart?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Curtis?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
And then we will table the resolution. Revolving fund loan resolution till our meeting on the
September.
11th of September.
Okay. That's our next finance meeting.
Correct, yeah, next finance. Okay, I think that with any old business, new business, I would just, I think, going back to the budget stuff real quick, just to make it 100% clear, we need to, I don't know what the right process is on that, John, but we need to talk to the health board. Make sure we get some kind of discussion or decision before our next meeting.
Yeah, we need to kind of make a recommendation to them.
Maybe send them an email with a recommendation to the chairman of the board or something, or I guess we can talk with John here offline and figure out what the,
They're probably going to have that special meeting.
just at least propose to them what we're,
Exactly.
I guess, I think we're all recommending that somewhere that we use the occupancy rate figures or whatever and figure out how we can come to some resolution. So, send their group an email. The other one would be, so I think 911 ETSB, hopefully we'll have an answer tomorrow. And, I think my only other issue is I'd like to understand the vehicles, the sheriff vehicle situation more clearly. I think the big items on the capital, what Anita did is probably is good enough at this point. Okay, we know we got the parking lot and the air conditioner and those things looming out ahead of us, so we need to keep them on the radar. What year, I think, is up for debate, other than maybe the south parking lot. But at least we have them on a piece of paper and we won't forget about them. But the cars, and that is an ongoing issue that we need better clarity from. So I would propose that we request from the sheriff to help give us the clarity on the mileage and maintenance costs. Any detail that we need in order to understand that situation a little bit better.
And data purchase, because you know, when you start throwing out all
So,
years.
I think Anita gave him a lot of
They're
that
in
stuff.
It's in there.
It's in there. On the last sheet that was
The model
presented.
year is in there.
I think what we're
Model year
missing
car is
is,
in there.
Yeah, model year, but not
Model
data
year.
purchase.
It
That's
is.
in there too.
It's in
It's
there.
in
Oh,
there.
is it?
so we have that. I think the big issue is gonna be our the mileage. And maybe if we got data expenses or something like that.
Date of birth.
I think that what started there is good.
Yeah,
Started, the key word there. But I think that one of the things that needs to be addressed is the validity of the figures that are being presented. Are they guesstimates?
and that is,
They have
yeah.
some documentation to authenticate.
Yeah. And maybe we could have the sheriff talk about that as well, as far as the parking lot where those numbers were derived. I believe offline, he told us, they talked with ITC and some places like that, but maybe a little more clarity on that next meeting would be good as well.
Yeah, because if we're going to really look at it too much, we can save on the maintenance cost.
For sure. So,
Because
we're,
every 2 years they do the maintenance thing anyhow.
yeah, so, yeah, there's those considerations as well. So I think we need clarity on the capital in general, as far as where the estimations came from next meeting, and prior to the meeting, we need Anita's template filled out with regards to the mileage and maintenance and things that she had provided to him previously. So that we can look through that.
Agreed.
That would be mine. Is everyone okay with that for
Yeah.
sending that to the sheriff and the health department? Or health board?
And you said you already sent to the HCSC.
We did,
Okay.
maybe Anita, if you could forward that to this committee, I guess.
Yeah,
so you
same
can
with
see
whatever
where
goes to
everybody-
the health department
Yeah.
too would be great.
Just copy. That way everybody's on the same page. Those were my thoughts. Anything else? New business?
I move we adjourn. Or we got full business yet? I'm
Nope, I
sorry.
think that's it.
Okay.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Uh,
Aye.
Aye. Same. Aye. All opposed? Then